The session is about to start now. While we wait, can I ask you guys to all switch off your cameras and please mute yourself. Please also note that the session is being recorded, right? We've got a special guest today who's going to be talking about networking. His name is Tim Hulse. Tim is a trained actor who has owned and ran a drama school for the last 9 years. Before that, he had 15 years experience as a sales manager in the UK. This has definitely given him a unique insight into training for the corporate world. Welcome, Tim.
Hi, everybody.
Hello, Tim.
Hi, guys. I don't know if you can see me or hear me.
Yourself. Yes, Tim, we can see you and we can hear you.
All right. Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody is well. I'm looking forward to this exciting few minutes talking about networking. Although we've just seen a video about it. I don't know what more I can add, but we'll think of some more things. Hello, Tabo, are you there still? Whoa. Tabo, you're going to be starting with the slides now, or?
Hello, Tim. Are you able to share them on your side?
I can hear you now, but all I could hear before was sort of staticky noise.
Oh yeah, I was trying to mute the other guys. So can you share the slides on your side?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought you were doing it, but I can do it. Hang on.
Okay.
I don't use meetings very often, so I'm sure I'll work it out. Where's the share option?
Okay, it's a top. It's just next to the microphone icon.
Yeah. Share. Okay, let me know if you can see that.
Yeah, we can see them now. Yeah.
All right. Cool. Let me see if I can work them now, because I'm using two screens, so it's sometimes. There we go. There's me. Can you see me?
Yeah. Nice.
Looking very chipper. All right. Excellent. So we're going to be talking about networking today. So first of all, what is networking? Well, the dictionary definition of networking states the action or process of interacting with others. Ooh, a bit of wind there. To exchange information and develop professional or social contacts. So there's a couple of really important words there to look at. So the first one is the word exchange. This is not a selfishly motivated act. You're not, when you're going out to network, you are not looking to necessarily just look after your own interests and pursue your own agenda. It's a deliberate act that does not happen by accident. Networking is a designed, motivated skill that you can get better at and that you can develop. And is often very nerve-wracking at first, but as soon as you start, you'll start to get better and better at it the more you do it. But the important thing to remember is that it is an exchange of ideas to help all parties develop. And we're going to look at a few of the different things and ways of doing that. So why is it important, first of all? Why should you get out of your bed in the morning and start thinking about networking? Well, there's a few different reasons, and we're going to look at 5 of them. And some of them cross over and overlap, as with most things. But these are sort of the reasons why networking are going to aid you and help you along the way. Opportunities. That's really what we're all after at the end of the day, isn't it? It's about finding opportunities and developing areas where you can progress, whether it's progressing your own business or progressing within your career. And to make the most of opportunities, you have to be in a position to find the best opportunities. And this is where networking can really help you. First of all, people are going to start noticing you. It's going to open doors for newer opportunities. And the more people you meet through networking, the more opportunities start opening up. And it's like when you come to a fork in a road. If you're able to take both forks, then you're looking at opportunities down both of those. And hopefully both of those will end up forking off again. And it's an incremental thing. So opportunities like meeting the right clients or meeting people that are superior on your career path, those could be the stepping stones that you need to change your life for the better. It's a good way of reassessing your qualification and your standing in your career. So networking basically offers you the opportunity to find what you need to achieve to make it to your next level. The peers that you meet and the people that are going to be above you in the pecking order, they may have got there through finding out about qualifications that you don't know about or don't know exist. And networking is a great way of finding out, if there's somebody that you meet and you covet their position and you want to be where they are, how did they get there? And often the way they got there is by developing themselves, often through qualifications and new qualifications and keeping abreast of all the qualifications that come out. Obviously, this is where Academy of York comes in. They are in the best position to find out where you want to be and to help you achieve what you need to achieve to get where you want to get to. But that's also where networking can come in. If you know someone that you want to achieve and get to where they are, find out how they got there. What qualifications did they do? Where did they do them? Is there something that AOI offers that will be the same thing and get you to where they are? It improves your creative intellect. And what do we mean by creative intellect? Well, basically, we're looking at being able to open up your brain and look at things slightly differently. Looking at the idea of sharing of ideas. If you're on your own and you're staring down the barrel and you're stuck on something, it's very hard to see things in any other way than just the way you're looking at them. And networking can really help open up that for you and will help you unleash the creative talent that everybody shares in a group. And when you put lots of different ideas in a group and start bouncing them off each other, they meld together and you start getting something that's more than the sum of its parts. And being able to bounce ideas off people, whether in a relaxed atmosphere or in a very sort of work atmosphere, is incredibly useful and will help you open up areas that you are previously stuck on. An extra resource library. I'm sure we all use the internet these days, and it's quite a useful tool. We all know which, if I want to look up an actor, I go to imdb.com. If I want to, look at what films are on, I'll go to Rotten Tomatoes. We all have a resource in our head for everyday lives. What we don't necessarily have is specific resources to help us in our day-to-day career and our day-to-day jobs. And this is where networking really can step in and save you and help you. You can find out all about updated information, about career trends, about new openings, inside business knowledge that you may not know about or be able to hear about other than from the horse's mouth. Changes to specific things happening in your career, things like the laws, technology, etc. All these things are not necessarily easy to find, by Googling them. But if you've got the right network and the right group of people that you can speak to about these things, those extra resources that they bring to the table could be just exactly what you need to progress or to help you or to let you know about the next innovation in your career and in your business. And you're only going to get that through the meeting of minds. Self-confidence, the growth in self-confidence. This is really important. And this, we can look at this in two different ways. Meeting people, for a lot of people, meeting new people is nerve-wracking and scary and not particularly pleasant a lot of the time. Not for everybody. Some people have that gregarious personality, and it means that they can go out and talk and not get tongue-tied and be happy to meet lots of people. But for most of us, and for a lot of us, it's a scary, intimidating thing to go into a room of people you don't know or know very few of and strike up conversations and feel like you are holding your own in the conversation and giving something back to the conversation. And the thing with self-confidence is there's no real easy way to get around it. You can't just make yourself confident. However, you can act confident, and that's part of the thing, really, is the more you act confident, the easier it gets, because it's an incremental thing. Every time you go out and do another networking event or a social event where there's networking involved, it will get easier and easier because your brain is programmed to look for the similar things happening. So you'll start stocking up the right questions to ask. You'll start being able to easily identify when it's time to move away from a conversation. You'll start easily learning to identify who the right person in the room is to go and speak to. And at the end of the day, knowledge is power. The more people you speak to, the more knowledge you get from those people, the more confident you are within yourself and within where you want to be and what you want to achieve. And networking with people is a great way of expanding that confidence and developing that self-confidence. So we know why we want to do it, but how do we do it successfully? I mean, there's loads of different ways, and we've picked sort of 5 things that will make it easier, should make it easier for you. 5 things that, 5 ways to help you network in a successful way. Sounds silly, but the first one is meet people. Find a way of doing it. And the easiest way to do it is through referrals. So every time you meet somebody, get them to tell you about somebody else who they think would be interesting for you to speak to. Everybody you meet is going to know a load of other people that you don't know. And if you can get their information or some of their information, you're expanding your network plan, your configuration of people that you know incrementally in a very quick way. And you need to find out how to meet people in the first place. And this is where, which we'll talk about in more detail in a second, but things like Facebook groups or social events or career days for your specific industry and those sort of things. Make the most of those. Go to them. Spend time walking around. Spend time talking to people. So while we're on the subject. Oh, we meet people through other people. Yeah, we've done that one. Social media. We all use it. We're all pretty much au fait with it. We're either going to be on Facebook or Instagram for at least 20% of our waking time. Not all of you, but I imagine quite a few of you will recognize that as the truth. And we may not be using it to the full benefit though, especially when it comes to networking. When it comes to networking, you're really looking at LinkedIn as your main place to go to. If you're not on LinkedIn, you really should be. It actually has its own sort of conversation tool. It has its own meeting place, its own sort of software that helps generate people that it recognizes would be beneficial for you to hook up with. And the other thing about social media is that you don't have that initial face-to-face fear of meeting people. It's much more relaxed. Now, what that means is you may not be able to get as much information from in a quick way, because it's much easier to develop that in a conversation naturally. But what it does mean is that whilst you're preparing for those face-to-face meetings, you can start breaking the ice with people on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And you do this very simply. Follow people, comment on any of their comments. Make sure that you are, hashtagging things and making sure that, when you have an opportunity to meet the person in real life, it's going to be much easier if you can reference previous communications you've had with them on a social network. Let the other person speak. Sounds a bit ironic coming from me, because I'm going to have to speak for 30 minutes without anybody talking. But when you're in a networking situation, you want to be able to make sure that you are not doing all the talking. And we're going to look at the reverse of this in a minute. But you need to show that you are as good a listener as you are a communicator. And to help with that, you're often going to meet people. Remember, this is a two-way street. Remember what we talked about at the beginning. This is an exchange. Quite often, the people you are meeting and networking with will be just as, if not more, nervous than you. So you might get somebody that you're desperate to get information from, or wanting, or know that they will have, the tools that you need. But if they're not talking, you need to try and sort of get that information out of them. And the best thing to do is to have a few open-ended questions ready and prepared, so that if the other person is reticent to speak and you feel like you're doing all the talking, you can bring out these questions and start trying to coax them out of their shells. So it's things like, how long have you been with the company? What do you like about your job? What type of training did you need for this position? How long have you been in this field? All these sort of open-ended questions to get people talking about themselves, and that way you're leading them down the path of getting the information from them. Present a success story. So this is important because, again, we're looking at from the point of view of it being a two-way street. They're going to be wanting to network with you as much as you are wanting to network with them. And they were looking for value from you as a networking companion. And if you can present a success story on one of the subjects that you're talking about, and one assumes that when you're networking, you're meeting people with the same career trajectories as you, with the same sort of job positions. So you've got sort of common goals and common thoughts on things. So if you can have a story in your mind that will be relevant to most of the people you meet, a success story where you've changed something or done something, or something was a disaster and you've turned it around. If you have those stories just ready to go and it's an entertaining story, immediately they're going to want to talk to you, and they're going to want to introduce you to the next person. because you're making yourself useful. And at the end of the day, not only do we want to get something from the people we're networking with, we have to be able to offer up stuff and information and a sense of use for the other people to want to carry on networking with us. You know, if you're just there for yourself, at the end of the day, people are going to notice that and get pretty bored with it pretty quickly. So we're going to quickly just talk about expanding your network and how we do that. We touched on it slightly at the very beginning of this, where you can ask for suggestions on how to expand your network. So if you think that every separate person you meet will know approximately 100 to 200 other people that you don't know, if you can gain introductions from these clients, your network plan grows exponentially and can grow very quickly. And that's obviously what we're aiming for. We're aiming to try and meet as many people and get as much information in a shorter space of time as possible and in as easier time as possible. And if you can tap into everybody that you meet's network of people, then you're going to be able to do that very quickly. So you need to not be afraid to ask your contacts if they can recommend organizations or names of people that would be interesting to talk to regarding whatever it is that you brought up with them. And with each one of these, you're going to be able to find very, very valuable connections, not necessarily with every single person, but remember, you know, you only need one or two very, very valuable connections and you're ahead of the game and you're sort of going to be doing very well. So let's look at a few things to try and avoid when we're networking, to try not to do. So this is kind of the reverse coin of what we were talking about earlier. Don't be the one that is staying silent in the conversation. You need to try and be as engaging as possible. Obviously, lulls in conversations are normal, but you can prepare to prevent silence. Confidence is part of that. You know, be willing to talk, be willing to have things in your head like we spoke about earlier, the success stories, the open-ended questions that you can pull out when there is a silence. So if you are constantly the one moving the conversation forward, people notice that, and that becomes a very, very good sign of confidence and a good sign of self-confidence. And that's what people are looking for. They're looking for confident people that will help them. And if you can come across that way, then you're doing the right things, and they're going to be, you know, happy to talk to you and see that you can steer the conversation. Is a very, 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 very useful tip. Try to avoid yes/no questions. We don't want, you know, it's very easy to end up in a dead end very quickly, and then that becomes a bit uncomfortable and slightly harder to get out of. And talking about that, don't stay in uncomfortable situations. If someone is rude to you or uses language or behaves inappropriately, or if you feel uncomfortable for any reason, thank the person and leave the conversation. You don't need to stay in conversations and situations that are making you uncomfortable. Don't feel like, you know, you're going to offend that person. That person probably doesn't know they're being inappropriate or making you uncomfortable. Not that that's an excuse, but what it means is that they're not going to be offended if you say, thanks very much, I'm just going to go over there and talk to that person. By the same respect, try not to be the person making people uncomfortable. You know, make sure that you're always polite, make sure that you're always listening and reacting to whoever you're talking to. Don't be the person that other people are trying to avoid. Now, wasting time with unhelpful information. Obviously, you know, we've all heard the expression time is money, and it's an expression that's there for a reason. It's there because it's true. And if you're talking with someone and some people just like to hear the sound of their own voice, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but if you're wanting to get information on something specific and they're talking around the houses, then try not to waste your time. Try to steer the conversation, and you can learn to steer the conversation in several ways. Questions, again, we're going back to the open-ended questions. If you can ask pointed questions to move them in the direction that you want to talk about, you can do it without being rude and without sounding like you're wanting to shut them up. But at the end of the day, if it's not helpful, what they're talking about, you want to try and refocus the conversation to what will be useful to you. And if it doesn't feel like that it is going to refocus into something that's useful, let the person finish their point, thank them, so you don't want to take up too much of their time, and either ask them another question that you want to get the information on, or excuse yourself and go meet with somebody else. Again, we don't want to waste time with people making us uncomfortable, but we also don't want to waste time with people who may not have the information or the skills set or whatever it is that we're looking for when we're networking. So it's always good to recognize that. And as I said at the beginning, the more you put yourself in these situations, the more you put yourself out there and get into groups of people, the easier all this becomes. It starts becoming very quickly very easy to see who's not going to have the information you want. And then you're going to get very, very good at steering away from those people and finding ways to get away and get to the people who are useful and do have the information that you want. Asking for a job. Now, networking is brilliant, and quite often you will be developing relationships with people that are in a position to offer you different positions and different jobs. However, this can't be the only reason to go into a networking situation. If it is, it will come across very, very quickly as desperate. And remember at the beginning, the networking is an exchange of ideas. If you are just there basically trying to get a better job than the one you have now, it's going to be a pretty losing battle for you. People are going to see through that very, very quickly. Now, this might be your end goal for it, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, as long as you don't make that your overriding goal. Don't make that the only thing that you are aiming for. Don't walk around with a hire me sign, metaphorically speaking. However, if someone presents opportunities to you during a networking or an informal interview, make it. Someone unmuted for a second there. I'm sure it's gone back now. But don't feel pressured. Don't feel pressured that you have to suddenly interview there and then. Everybody knows it's informal. Say you're interested, but you'd love to come into the office and sit down properly and talk about it in more detail. You don't have to feel pressure to do the interview on the spot there and then, if you see what I mean. Following up and keeping a record or not doing that. It's very easy. If you're meeting a lot of people, it's very easy to forget them. Forget who they are, forget that you've met them even. And you want to try and avoid this as much as possible. It's not always going to be completely avoidable, but you want to try and find workarounds for this. And we've all seen, films where a prime minister has an aide next to them with a card saying, "Oh, that's Baroness Smith, and she has 4 children." And the king says, "Oh, Baroness Smith, how are your children?" And that's kind of where you want to be, because there's nothing worse, and I'm sure you've had it, where you recognize someone and like, "Oh, it's so good to see you again," and they blatantly don't know who you are and and what you're talking about and what you have to offer or what you're on about. And you don't want to be that person, or you want to try and avoid to be that person. So keep a record of who you've met. And it can be as constructed as a spreadsheet with names, phone numbers, email addresses, where you met them, what you talked about, who they introduced you to. And in a way, that's useful, because if you're speaking to somebody and you can reference it back if you're on the phone in front of it and be like, oh yeah, don't you know so and so? It immediately gives you an up, and it gives you a way of making a connection with that person that is very simple for you, but is very deep for them. And the more you can remember things about people, the better it is. If you can keep notes about people, obviously you can't refer to them there and then, but keeping notes helps jog the memory. So if you do it on a regular basis, your memory will just get jogged naturally, and you'll start to soak up that much more easily because you're making notes and keeping records. Good. That brings us to the end of our half-hour chat about networking. I'm happy to try and answer any questions if there are any. Just to leave you though, it is an incredibly important skill to develop and to get on top of and not be afraid of. It really can help.
Oh yes, thank you very much, Tim, for a very informative session. I think it has come in very handy and helpful for everybody who's online right now. I've certainly learned a couple of things. Welcome to everybody who's just joined us right now, right? I certainly like the social media part, right? Mm-hmm. When it comes to networking, especially in this time where there's COVID, we can't really physically meet with people, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So here's a question: is online networking good, and what is its disadvantages?
Yeah, I mean, like, as you say, it is good, and it's great that we live in a world where, we get stuck with something like COVID, and yet we still have the opportunity to not just sit in a room on our own, and we can, it's called social networking for a reason. So its advantages are fairly obvious, but it's an immediate thing. We can all do it very, very simply. We can go onto Facebook, we can type in the search, I don't know, your job title, and you're probably going to very quickly find a group of people that do the same thing as you. And you can join those groups, and immediately you can start sharing ideas. And you can do it almost anonymously, which means that you don't have to have that build-up of self-confidence that you might need before you enter a room of 30 people you don't know. The disadvantages are probably that you're not going to be able to get as much detailed information as you would with a face-to-face meeting. It's going to be more general. It's going to be more it's going to be very difficult to pick individuals' brains and to get specific answers to questions you might need. Not impossible, it's just going to be a bit harder. If you're face to face, you can assess the situation quicker and get to where you want to be in a much quicker way.
Excuse me, guys. Can I ask you to please at least mute yourself and then switch off your cameras to avoid disruptions? Let me see. Yeah, carrying on, Tim. Yeah, definitely. I like that answer about social media, right? Of course, with social networking, it's not that we don't have that physical face-to-face interaction.
No, yeah. There's something about that. There is something different about that. The ability to get detailed information is much easier in a face-to-face environment, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I see a hand up from Bongani. Bongani, you can actually unmute yourself and then you can ask a question.
Good day, team. Good day, good day.
Hi.
And it's Bongani here. Tim, your session was very good, but when you're explaining the social part, I wanted to understand what will be the advantage and the disadvantage if one is not good in terms of social media per se, and one is actually good with face-to-face networking. Is it a bad thing or is it a good thing, or how do you advise one who's maybe strong points is maybe a face-to-face networking than the social media? Is it a bad thing for one, or is it a good thing for one? Or
Um,
if one needs to change that, how to go about that? Thanks, Tim.
no worries.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
so
man.
at the end of the day, Bongani, we always want to work to our strengths. So if you happen to find it easier to meet with people face to face than you do using social media like LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever, then that's absolutely brilliant. And that's not to say you should ever use Facebook. And I think, we're always looking to develop ourselves and our skill sets. And there might be things that you can find out with social media that is more immediate than it is having to wait for a networking opportunity to arise in a face-to-face way, especially these days, as Tabo mentioned, during COVID, it's it might be you're not getting the chance to do face-to-face networking as much as you did, in the past. But no, I certainly don't think one is better than the other. I think they both serve in slightly different ways, but they are both tools that can be used to get where you want to get to. I hope that answers your question.
Oh yes. I hope that answers Bongana's questions. Very good question indeed. I like the fact that you need to always improve your skills. That's why we also have colleges like Academy of York.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then we have another questions from Washington. Washington, you can unmute yourself and then you can ask a question.
Good day, everybody. Hello, Tim and Tabo. Nice knowing you guys. My question to you, Tim, today, I saw there on your dons that you don't have to keep quiet during an interaction of networking. Now, my question is, networking, does it require an introvert or an extrovert? Because some of us rather just listen and gather information and not communicate with other people, because we rather listen more and grasp as much as information as we can, and we'll go and then we'll scrutinize that information alone and try to see what we can find. Is it a good thing to be like that, or is just a bad move to go with? Thank you.
No worries. No, I get what you're saying. And I don't think we can be as black and white as good or bad. What I would say is I would refer you to what we mentioned at the very beginning, that networking is an exchange of ideas. And maybe, 7 times out of 10, if you're the quiet one in the room, it's going to go unnoticed and no one's going to be like, oh, did you see that guy who just sat there doing nothing? However, for those 3 times out of 10 where someone does bring it up or notice it, it might be that you are limiting your opportunities because you're not seen as bringing anything to the table during that networking event. And this is where the sort of confidence thing is, because it is hard, and no one, I'm certainly not going to pretend it isn't. There are people who are naturally introverted and, as you said, would prefer just to sit and listen, and you will always get information through that method, I think. And most time it's not going to be a disservice necessarily. However, what we want to do is try and access a way that we get all the information as easily as possible. And if you are networking with someone or with a group of people who feel like you're not offering anything to the group, it's not going to be that they're all going to turn around and say, why aren't you saying something? It just might be that you don't get invited to the next one, or they don't, invite you to lunch with that. You know what I mean? It's not going to be as obvious as, right, let's not talk to Washington because he didn't say anything. It's going to be much more subtle than that. And what we're trying to do is obviously try and not put ourselves in those positions. And that's not to say you have to be the life of the party and be like, yay, everybody listen to me. It's just about, making sure that you have one or two things to say about a subject.
Oh, yes. Yes, I hope that has answered Washington. I like the fact that you pointing out that you cannot be too quiet in a conversation. You're just cutting yourself out. Yeah. And
no, you don't want to run the risk of coming across as the person with nothing to offer.
Yeah.
And half the time that's not going to be true. Of course we know that you're going to have something to offer, but you don't want to give the impression that you don't, because impressions go a long way.
Yeah. That also answered a half part of my next question I was about to ask about what about a shy person and a reserved person? How do you network when you are extremely reserved?
Sure. And as I said during the presentation, two things you've got to remember. One is that it gets easier the more you do it. So those first couple of times are going to be the worst. But if you can, as soon as you're in a conversation about something you know about, which is what we're networking for anyway, is that we can talk about our careers and what we're doing, it's much easier to lose those nerves, because naturally we're going to be, find a common denominator and a common subject. And it's unlikely you're going to be in a networking situation where you don't know what anyone else is talking about. And if you are, you're probably in the wrong place. You want to go to the other room where they're talking about what you need to know about. And it's just about overcoming those initial hurdles. And to be honest with you, there's no trick to it, Taba. There's no easy way. There's no way of you've just got to kind of just pull yourself up and say, right, I'm going to go talk to somebody now. And you just got to jump in with 2 feet. The thing is, the next time you do it, it'll be a lot easier. And by the 5th time you do it, it'll be super easy. And by the 100th time you do it, it'll be like water off a duck's back. So you just kind of build that confidence up in yourself by sort of throwing yourself out there a little bit.
Yeah, true. Yeah, true. I've got an interesting question here from Pulling. I like the question. Is a networking a skill that can be taught for someone with anxiety who finds it difficult to interact with other people? Is basically saying, is networking a skill that can be taught? Or kind of networking?
Yeah, well, I don't know whether it can be taught or not, but it can certainly be developed, and it can certainly be, as I was talking about there. You need to find, when you're networking, when you start networking, I think what you don't want to be doing is putting yourselves in positions where for example, if you're quite shy, you don't want to be necessarily maybe going into people and talking to them that are 3 levels above you in your career, because all of a sudden now you're feeling shy and nervous and anxiety anyway, but that's sort of expounded by knowing you're talking to people that are. So what you want to do is maybe go for networking sessions or networking with people who are on the same level or that you are slightly higher than. So you already have that sort of similar status feeling. And you'll find that when you do that, you all have a common subject, a common touch point that you can talk about. And even people who suffer from chronic shyness, once they start talking about something they know about and enjoy and have knowledge of, it's much easier then. So I don't know whether networking can necessarily be taught, but I think it definitely can be developed with even the shyest person. And you've got to remember as well, is that when you walk into a room of 20 people, I will almost guarantee that 15 of those will be just as nervous and just as shy as you. There might be 5 people out there that are, gregarious and walking around, hey, how you? But the other 15 will be like, oh, I really don't want to do this. And they'll want to, they'll want to meet people that are like-minded, and they'll want to
I'm a reverse person, and most of the
find
time,
that connection.
I also have a social club because
Yeah.
it gets to me. However,
Excuse me.
I'm very good when engaging on work and study matters. I'm one of those active participants in class and during workshops. I'm a very good presenter, but during break, I avoid interaction by more because it's something contribute.
Not sure if this is a version or interruption.
Couldn't tell.
Yeah, sorry about that interruption, team.
No worries.
Yeah.
No worries. Yeah. So I hope that helps. I don't know that it can. I don't think there's necessarily a class for networking, but you can develop your skills at it.
Okay. Oh yeah, that definitely takes me to my next question, right? Let's say for a person who wants to interact with somebody or an audience that outside their comfort zone, right? Your last answer, you answered a little bit of that, but let me say in a scenario where I want to start a business, right? I hear like part of this session says I need to network, I need to find out from people who've been in the business before, So how do I actually network to people who've been in business for maybe more years than me, 10 years into the business, and I find myself in the same space? How do I actually break the ice and actually communicate with those people? With that question answered, with that questions in mind, I just want to note, Victoria, I noted your hands is up. After this question, we'll give you an opportunity to ask. Yes, Tim, we can carry on with that question.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've got to believe that you have something to offer. You've started a business. You've got to go into the conversation wanting to get information, but also believing in that you are there for a reason. You know what I mean? You're not just there to ask the questions. And you can do that by having, for example, the success stories that we talked about. Just have one of those, something that's gone well in your business, regardless of what it was, that you can just talk about, and that breaks the ice. So, you can be like, if as soon as you hear someone talking that will help bring that up, you can just be like, oh yeah, that happened to me. What I did was X, Y, and Z, and it actually worked out really well. What would you have done? And immediately you've entered into it as an equal. Most people don't see themselves as, oh, I've been in business 50 years, I know more. You know what I mean? They're there to network as well. They're there to get information and to get as much from these meetings as they can, as much as anybody else is. So I think you've just got to find your reason for being there and find what it is that you can offer. And there will be something, you know what I mean? If you're running your own business, that's not an easy thing to do. So you will have had to jump over hurdles, however small or high. And if you can talk about that with anybody, they'll listen.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. That's a good answer. Victoria, you can unmute yourself and actually ask a question. Hello, Victoria. Are you still on the line? Okay. While we still wait for Victoria, I've got something from Lindy, right? She says, I want to ask as well if I'm not a talkative person. Wait, that question just jumped. Okay. While we wait, what about talkative people? We just spoke about shy people. What about talkative people while we're still on that?
Well, this is what we were, as part of the thing, don't just be the one that does all the talking. You need to find that sweet spot, that balance, so that, as you probably gathered, I like the sound of my own voice, and I can talk for England because that's where I'm from. But not everybody is like that, and not everybody wants to hear my voice constantly. So I think you need to be able to self-regulate that, and have have what you want to say, have questions that you want answered, but also be willing to step back and make sure that you are offering answers to any other questions that are out there as well.
Oh yeah, oh, yes, yeah, that's definitely helpful. Let me see. I've got another hand up. Victoria is still available. Okay, Lindy, can you unmute yourself and ask your question? Okay, let me see if I can unmute these guys. Okay. Yeah. I see Washington, you still have your hand up. Do you have another question? Okay, I don't think the guys have got another question. All right. As a person, who should you network with and where can you network, Tim?
Well, this is very dependent on your line of work, what you do, what you want to achieve. What you got to, I suppose, answer the question first. Why am I wanting to network?
Okay.
Because you need to be able to correctly identify what you want to get out of a networking, or what you can offer as maybe in a networking situation, before going into it. And then obviously you need to look at things like Facebook groups or trade events. If you're in a specific trade, they do all these conventions and trade events. Those are perfect things. Even things, if you work in a big company, if you work at, I don't know, APSA, and there's hundreds of people around you that you never speak to.
Yeah.
When you're in the cafeteria, for example, sit down with someone, talk to them. You never know. You may not get all the information you want or get everything you want from that person, but you might strike up a conversation and be like, oh yeah, well, I'm hoping to be in this department in 2 years. Oh, I know Jerry in that department. Oh, really? Oh, I'd love to speak to him. Oh, no problem. Yeah, I'll give you, you know what I mean? And immediately you're then expanding your network. It's not all about necessarily going, hi, I'd like to know about this really important thing. Networking can be as relaxed as having a coffee with someone and just being, so what do you do? Oh, yeah, okay, right, okay. So do you know Bob in that department? Yeah, okay, and by that way, you're sort of expanding your knowledge in a sort of more general way than just, going down I must achieve this by the end of this meeting.
Yeah, definitely. I like that answer. You don't want to break the ice with a bazooka, No,
exactly. And yeah, you don't want to come across as the person, as the person that's just like, I want my information. I don't care how, it's got to be a sort of organic thing. It's got to be
natural.
Yeah, as natural as possible, certainly.
All right. I've got a hand up from Zimasa. Zimasa, you can unmute yourself and ask your questions. Guys, keep your questions coming. We're only left with 5 minutes for the session. I think Zimasa just gone now.
Perhaps I already answered it.
Okay, let me see other questions. Yeah, it's been an interesting topic for the day. It's really hard for certain people to actually communicate. Oh, yeah, I see Zimasa is back. Zimasa, you can ask your question. Please unmute yourself. Hello, Zimasa. Okay. I think communication's a bit of a struggle today.
Yeah, maybe they're
Yeah.
working. The back sound doesn't seem to be very good, does it?
I see also Teams has changed a couple of things. I think people are struggling with getting the right buttons to press.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've got a question. Why is networking important for students, job seekers, and professionals?
Well, look, I mean, at the end of the day, as I said earlier, knowledge is power. The more information we can get about where we want to achieve, the easier it is to get to those achievements, And yes, we can Google a lot of things. Google is amazing, but 9 times out of 10, for specific details, you need to talk to people about that. And so if you're a student at AOY and you're looking at, expanding your knowledge, maybe you want to find out more about different courses that can help you. Maybe you want to speak to, someone who is in the position that you want to get to. Find out what courses they did. Find out what qualifications they have. Find out whether that was the thing that turned it around for them. 9 times out of 10, it is. And if you can find that out and then, go down that same path, you've already got a clear idea of where that will lead you. So I think it's vital. And, we make a big thing about networking, about it being, it's like I was talking about it earlier. Networking isn't necessarily a pre-designed thing where we have to go, right, today I'm going to go out networking. Yeah. We're networking all the time. You guys are the people that are still on this call are doing it right now.
Networking right now.
It's not necessarily something that we just, we wake up and go, right, today's my networking day. I'm out there. I'm going to meet people. You meet people all the time, and you can be networking with someone you've known for 10 years because you suddenly find out a new piece of information. That's still networking. That still is, if you look at that dictionary definition of it, the exchange, action, the process of interacting with others to exchange information and develop professional or social contacts. That doesn't mean it's always with new people. When you sit down next to somebody in your office or at your job, you're networking. We don't call it that all the time because it doesn't necessarily have to end up with something, but that's what it is.
Yeah. Definitely. Yes, Tim. Unfortunately, we just ran out of time.
No worries.
And at the end of, it was very informative. It's always wonderful having you around.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I love doing these things. I hope some information will help people there and maybe inspired them to go talk to somebody. If that happened, then that's great.
Yes, definitely. That's the whole purpose of this session, to inspire, to educate, and to share information, especially to our AOY, our Academy of Yoga students. We find this session very helpful. Guys, our next session is on the 12th of May. It's appreciation. Our guest is going to be Val. Val Lemming is going to be our guest speaker. Thank you to everyone who just joined us today. A very big thank you to Tim on behalf of the Academy of York and also on behalf of the students. It's been very informative. Thank you very much. It's our end of the session.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you. Guys, if you've got any questions, please post them. If you want the session notes and the video to be emailed to you, please drop your email on the chat function or email it to info@aoy.co.za. We really love your feedback. Share it wherever you can. Tell us what you think about this session. Tell us on Facebook what you think, what you thought about this session, what you thought about team. Just share what you think about this session. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, team, again.
Thank you, guys. Have a good day, and I'll be back in June for another one.
Oh, definitely. Thank you. What's the topic again in June, Tim?
Can't remember.
Okay, yeah, but yeah, I'll definitely share it. The guys will know.
I'm sure it's going to be something amazingly interesting.
Definitely. It's always amazing. Thank you. Bye.
Cheers, everybody. Bye-bye.